All right, welcome to our workshop, everybody. It is amazing to see so many people here. My name is Matthew Warner, the founder of Flocknote. I'm joined by Kathy McTighe, who's from our Engaged team here at Flocknote, and Bobby Angel, who is a fellow of Parish Life at the Word on Fire Institute. Welcome, Kathy and Bobby.
Great to
Great to
be
see
with
you
you.
guys here. Yeah, you guys ready to do this thing?
Yeah,
Let's do
we're
it.
excited. And thank you, everyone who's here right now, and anyone who's watching a replay link at a later time. We hope that the content is something valuable to you and for the work you're doing in the church and for the body of Christ.
Yeah, it's awesome seeing so many people here. It's neat to be reminded of how many, as part of this engaged community grows. It's awesome to see how many people there are out there. It's neat seeing everyone sharing where they're from in the comment section there. So feel free to throw in, your city, state, country, wherever you're from over there. Maybe what brought you here today. I think it's inspiring for us to see that. I know, but I think for each other to see it, that there's thousands of others out there that are having the same challenges as you, and working through a lot of these things together. So we're excited to focus on some of those today. As you said before, this joint project between Word on Fire and Flocknote was created to address the serious engagement issues in the Catholic Church and to help parish leaders like yourself do something about it and support you in your work. We've talked about the 82% a lot last year. Hopefully you caught some of those webinars. Today we're going to dive deeper into some of that and go explore why they ignore us, why they don't seem to get engaged to a lot of things we offer, and some things on how to fix that. One quick reminder is that this is a workshop, so there is a worksheet. You just have to make it yourself since this is digital, but it's going to be helpful if you get out a single piece of paper. So while we're just waiting another minute for everyone to show up here, you grab a single sheet of paper that you can write on and some sort of writing utensil. And you're going to use that during the workshop today, and it's going to help you get a lot more out of this workshop and hopefully leave with some ideas on what to do next. Okay, so we're going to try to help you with that. So please, we encourage you, get a single sheet of paper and something to write with. We're going to be covering things like the 4 keys to invitations that work, and we're going to be sharing an awesome opportunity we have for your parish this Lent as well. But before we get started, Bobby, would you mind getting us started with a prayer?
Absolutely. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, you know us. You've called us to do work in your name. You know us as your beloved sons and daughters. We ask for a spirit of peace, that we can just set aside all the stress, all the planning, everything that may be pulling at our attention, um, just to spend this time in planning and preparation, that we can continue to build up the body of Christ. Give us wisdom and boldness to execute, and a love for your people. We pray all this in your holy name. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate that. All right, so we're going to get right started here in just a moment. But before jumping in, I wanted to go over just a couple things. Again, that reminder that you get to participate. So get out that sheet of paper and be ready to write some things down. And we're going to ask you maybe just to share some things in the chat there over on the right. So you get to participate. The second thing is to please ask questions at any time. We do have some of the team over there in the chat on YouTube, so that they can hopefully be answering questions throughout the webinar if we don't answer them directly in the webinar. So feel free that as those things pop into your head, go ahead and ask them over there and we'll try to get them answered. If we don't get them answered in the chat, because there's a lot of traffic over there, we're going to do our best. We're going to try to have some time at the end to have a little Q&A time so we can answer some of the maybe the more common questions for everybody, if we've got time at the end. And then if we still don't get to it or don't have time to, because I'm sure we won't get to for all of them, you can always email us at engage@flocknote.com. We'll share that email address again later, and in the email we've sent in the follow-up here. So you can reach out at any time and we will, there it is, good job. Well, you can email that any time and we'll be happy to answer any questions you have. So please don't go without, don't leave with any questions unanswered after you either the webinar or email us afterwards, and we want to get those answered for you. And then finally, we're going to be sending you home with a free invitation packet of resources. It's a digital packet, but we'll be sending this in the follow-up email. We put together, our team put together an invitation resources packet for Lent and Easter this year. So it's got lots of write-ups, copy, examples of good invitations, of ways to invite people, all written up for you. It's got imagery, it's got ideas in there, all kinds of good stuff. So we're going to send that to you for free after the webinar. So look for that in the follow-up email as well. All right, so we're going to start. There it is, the invitation resource. The next thing we're going to do is take a look at your piece of paper. So pull out that blank sheet of paper, get your writing utensil, and we're going to divide this into 4 sections. So 2 on one side and 2 on the back. So if you take your piece of paper and draw a horizontal line down the middle on each side, okay? And then, so you got 4 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then just number them so you can refer to them at different times in the corner of each one. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So in that first section is going to be a place to write key takeaways from today's workshop. So that's a space to just jot down notes, things that stand out in your head. It doesn't have to be organized. It doesn't have to be prioritized. Just as they come to you or as you hear them, feel free to jot them down in that space number 1. So you've got a dedicated space to capture ideas, capture things you might want to take back to your team at your parish and try to implement. So just keep that in mind as we go through. So before we jump into the main content for today, though, I want to do a quick review of the 82%. So again, some of you maybe know the 82% because we talked about them before in previous webinars, but maybe you haven't really heard about the 82% that much before. And so we want to do a quick overview and remind everybody of what that is and how to understand what we mean when we say the 82%. So if we look at all the Catholic adults in the US, it's around 53 million Catholic adults who claim the name Catholic. There's actually 26 million more who have left the church. So they were Catholic, they were baptized Catholic, they claimed being Catholic at some point, but no longer associate themselves with the Catholic Church or identify themselves as Catholic, okay? So we're talking about this 53 million Catholic adults, people who still claim to be Catholic. Within that, you have 11% of them who never attend. So they never show up. They still say, I'm Catholic, but they never show up to Mass. They never come to anything at the parish. They don't really have a local parish that they would even probably consider theirs, but they still call themselves Catholic. Within that, you have 39% who in general show up on a given Sunday. So on a given Sunday, now this is pre-COVID numbers, so these are all tempered down still. We're hoping they still come back, although the new normal is probably going to be less, it looks like, than before. But you still get the idea here. We still don't know what the new numbers are going to be. Most parishes I talk to, it sounds like they're still at 65 to 70% capacity pre-COVID numbers. But so keep that in mind. But the concept still applies the same. And 39% were coming on a given Sunday. So it's not the same 39% every Sunday, but 39% are there sitting in front of us on the pews on average on a given Sunday. So pretty phenomenal that here they are right in front of us, 39% every Sunday. Within that, you have 21% who are there every single week. So the 21% come very faithfully every single Sunday to Mass. Okay, so within that 39%, about half, a little over half, are the same people every Sunday. And then the other half, the rest of the 39%, is a rotating group of other people. We'll talk about more of that in a second. And then within the 21%, you have the 7%. So the 7% was based off the study that Dynamic Catholic did a while back that showed that on average at a parish, 7% of the people do almost all of the giving financially and almost all of the volunteering. And they're generally about the same group. So the 7% are very engaged. They're what they call dynamic Catholics. We consider them very highly engaged, committed members of the parish. And that's your 7%. So the 82% is this gap in the middle of people that are not fully engaged. They're not where we want them to be more deeply engaged and committed to the parish and the faith and involving it in the rest of their lives in lots of different ways. And then you have the 11%, which we're not that we're writing them off, but they're no longer really associated with our parish directly. They're not sitting in front of us on a given Sunday at some time this year, so the opportunities are less. So the big opportunity for us right now in the church is this 82% that still in general is showing up at some point throughout the year. They're still showing up and sitting in front of us on a given Sunday. And what are we doing to stop them from drifting out? Because in general, this group of the 82% is slowly drifting out of the church. So they are the ones that very few of them are leaning further in, becoming more of the 7%, and most of them are going the other direction. And so, unfortunately, a lot of our programs, a lot of our language we use, a lot of the invitations we make are the 7% talking to the 7% doing things for the 7%. And so we're not breaking out of that bubble and finding ways to engage the 82%. And in the meantime, they're just continuing to drift out. And so this was a lot of our focus in this partnership with Word on Fire and Flocknote, was to help parishes come up with a faith formation strategy for the 82%. So you need to have an intentional strategy of how you're going to engage the 82%. So I want you to pull your worksheet out again and go to the second space. And right here, I just want you to write real big, because this is an important point I want you to leave remembering and talking about at your parish, which is, what is our faith formation strategy to engage the 82%, and how are we doing? So just write real big in that space, faith formation strategy to engage the 82%. And then I want you to give yourself a grade. So grade yourself on 1 to 5, 1 being non-existent. We don't really have an intentional strategy to engage the 82%. And 5 being, we feel great about it. We're doing awesome. We're really doing, I think, everything we can. Right. So somewhere, grade yourself from 1 to 5, write it down on this sheet. And then we'd love for you to share that in the comment section as well, so you can kind of see where everybody's at. I think this is something that a lot of parishes just haven't thought to be deliberate about. We think about evangelization in general. We think about offering programs and spiritual resources in general, but really getting specific about what are we doing to engage the 82%, and having a deliberate strategy in place, not just a one-time event or a one-time effort, but an overall strategy that pulls all those things together. So our goal is to today give you some practical things to put into that strategy, to help form that strategy of engaging the 82% at your parish. And one of the places that we need to start is with a group that we call the uninvited. One of the main reasons people drift out of the church is that they never actually feel invited. They want to join the community, a community. They want to feel they want to feel like they belong somewhere, but they never feel like they get the invitation, or not one that they feel like responding to, which is kind of a key point there. So when we're thinking about a faith formation strategy for the 82%, we need to address how are our invitations going? Because I think a lot of parishes feel like, well, yeah, we invite people all the time, but they're just not responding. But if they didn't really get the invitation, or the invitation wasn't relevant for them, then they're not really feeling invited, and the invitation isn't working, right? So we need to adjust the strategy. So, Bobby, how significant is it that we have large groups of people drifting away from the church who simply don't feel like they've been invited, and why do we need to be more intentional about how we invite people in the first place?
I mean, the ordinary call of the Christian is to evangelize and to witness. Vatican II said that, and so we have to be one who's witnessing and inviting over and over and over again. Um, we all know someone who's drifting out of the church, or who has left the church, a family member, a friend. So, I would say for just about everyone on this call, it's also a personal issue of, we know someone who has left the faith. And so it's not just, we're going to talk about communication and marketing and business practices, but it's also like, we want them to come home. We want them to know the Lord and the fullness of a life lived in Him. And many people don't show up, just, or don't get any deeper into the activities of the parish, because they don't feel invited. And it seems like we're inviting people all the time, but I mean, I was there. I was there where I just felt like a spectator showing up, because sometimes that's what the message we're sending without realizing it is, you come and we'll take care of all the ministries. And it lends itself to this kind of, I show up as a spectator and I'm not really involved. I don't need to be involved. And then we slide to, well, I guess I'm not even needed. And I'm going to go somewhere where I feel like I'm known and I'm needed. And I can contribute here. I never even considered getting really involved in the church, or considered the priesthood till like late in middle school, when a priest said, "Hey, you'd be a good priest." And I think I was 8th grade, and I said, "No, I like girls way too much." But I was 13, 14, and I realized that's the first time anyone had ever given me that direct invitation, not just kind of feeling like it's a blanket message to the whole church and therefore it's over my head. It's not really to me, but really like you, like we need you. We need you to get involved. The best organizations and fitness programs, and they create these tribes where it's I feel known and I feel like I need to get off the bench and get involved. Jesus invited people. He gave them that challenge. He gave them that invitation to go deeper, um, to get involved there. And we can't assume. We can't assume that if they're showing up at mass, if they're in the pew, then they somehow are all into the faith. Many of them, it's just by behavior. It's just this is what I do on Sundays, or this is what my parents taught us to do. And but I don't even really believe the Eucharist is what we say it is. The stats show that a depressing number of Catholics in the US, and I would say around the world even, don't really believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist, of that Jesus was Lord, that he was actually God. Like a lot of us go through the motions, but haven't been invited to step into the deep, the Duke et Altum message we just heard, to get out of the shallows, to come into the deep. Um, we were once there where the faith was not the most important thing in our lives. It's just something I have to do on a Sunday, or on Ash Wednesday and Easter. But I got the Super Bowl, I got work, I got the next Marvel superhero movie, I got every other priority that I've made. And so we also have to realize when we're making content, when we're inviting people, the faith may not be the most important thing in their lives yet, and that's okay. Like we're fishing, we're trying to bring them deeper into this relationship of Christ, to not have a message of finger wagging or condemnation. Honey is always better than vinegar here, but to be welcoming. We need you. We want you to be men and women of prayer, men and women fully alive, and that comes through a relationship with the Lord. So to relook at how are we inviting people, like we may think we're inviting people all the time and we're doing it great, but are we, to have a self-examination of our parish and of our efforts? Are we inviting them, and what are we inviting them to? Not just more programs, but that relationship with Christ at the heart of all the programs and any other activities we're trying to plan.
Yeah, that's very good. So I think it's the numbers speak for themselves that people are leaving the church in large numbers fairly steadily and quickly. Fewer and fewer, especially if I just look at the United States, are going to church. Period. They're not just leaving the Catholic Church and going to another church. In some cases, they do that, but in general, they're all leaving church. They're becoming more secular. So we know it's not because what we have to offer they don't need, right? But there's a perception that they don't need it, or in other words, they may be not either not hearing our invitation, or they're hearing it and they're ignoring it because it doesn't seem relevant to their life in some way. And so we want to talk about some of the ways that we fix that and address that. And so that's what we're going to jump into next, is why the 82% ignore invitations and how to make invitations that work so we can help start addressing some of these issues. But first, I want to jump back into our worksheet there again and go to space number 3 now. And I want you to take a minute or two and just write down as many ways as you can that your parish currently invites members, and particularly the 82%. How are you inviting them? So think about what you're inviting them to and also how you invite them. And just jot them down real quick in that space 3, the biggest ones that pop into your head. You're not going to get all of them right now, but the biggest ones that pop in your head, what are the main things you are right now, your parish invites parishioners to, and how you're inviting them. And if you feel like you have a particularly good one, after you write it on your sheet, feel free to throw it into the chat there to share with other people. I'm sure they'd like to see it. But we got to broaden our idea too of what it means to invite someone, or what we're inviting them to, because it's not usually we think of an invitation as I'm inviting someone to an event. I want you to come to this event at this time at this place, that's one thing to invite people to. But we could be inviting them to go deeper into the sacraments. Maybe it's to make it to confession. Maybe it's to pray together with you, or to pray on their own, or with their family. We could be inviting them to a next step in their faith in some way that challenges them. We could be inviting them to do something good, the corporal works of mercy or the spiritual works of mercy. We could be inviting them to experience something beautiful, or to fast, or to give alms. There's so many things that our faith has to offer to invite people to experience or to come to or attend or see or sense in some way. So think about all those different things. And so this will be good to get them written down so you can really start to analyze them. And we're gonna analyze them a little bit more here in a minute. While you finish writing those down, I love seeing all your input, by the way, and all the scores. I appreciate all of you being honest. There were a lot of ones and twos out there for your faith formation strategy for the 82%. That's so important, is to realize where you're at as a parish. Because if you think you're a 4 or 5, and I'm glad to see some of those out there too, but a lot of parishes might say, well, we're a 4 or 5. But if you think you're doing great, but you're actually not, then that first step is to acknowledge that. And so, again, I'm glad to see some that are doing well, but it's also nice to see parishes being honest, and saying, look, we're a 1 or 2. We haven't really done anything that intentional about inviting the 82%. And really, again, it's, do we have an overarching strategy for them? Have we talked about this in some intentional way? So I'm happy to see all that. One quick point to keep in mind before we get into the 4 keys to invitations at work is, how and when do we best reach the 82% in particular? So we talked about sort of feeling like we've invited people, but did they really get the invitation? So if your strategy to invite the 82% is to put it on your Facebook page or put it in your bulletin or something like that, it's might not even, they're probably not even seeing the invitation. So we can say we invited them, but did they really get invited if they didn't hear it? So again, a lot of the 82% are not there on a Sunday. So if they're not there on a Sunday, they're not seeing the bulletin, they're not reading it, they're not hearing the announcement. They're not typically the people who are liking your Facebook page, downloading your app, doing those sort of more highly engaged things. That's your 7%, maybe a few of the other ones that are most highly engaged, but most of the 82% are not doing those things. So we have to be intentional about where can we reach the 82%. And if we're honest about inviting them, we got to make sure the message is getting to them in a way that they're going to receive it. So again, just a little way to break up the 82%, because it is a wide range of people. Remember, you've got the rest of that 21% that they are there weekly. So an announcement on Sunday might be fantastic for them, because they might not be paying attention to your website or doing a lot of other things, but they're sitting in front of you on Sunday. So if they haven't tuned out your announcements yet, or if they have, you need to figure out how to wake them back up. But they're there, they're sitting there in front of them. You can make a personal direct invitation to them. And then, of course, you have the rest. It's just good to keep in mind that they're only coming every other week, once a month, once a year, a couple times a year at those big, Christmas, Easter, Ash Wednesday kind of events. And, so you have to really take advantage of those opportunities when they are there, to invite them and make sure they get the invitation. So again, just some logistics to keep in mind as you do this. And then also when you think about your digital channels, you can, an email is great for, or a text message too, as well, for reaching the 82% directly. That's one of the reasons why Flocknote has become what it is, because most of the parishioners at a parish are in this 82% group. So if you want to have regular communication to most of the parish, you need to be using email and text messaging as direct digital ways to be able to reach them effectively. So they're a great way to make the invitations as well. So anyway, keep that in mind as you're choosing channels, as you're thinking about the medium or occasion you're going to use to invite people. You have to be realistic about where the 82% are if you want to reach them. There's that quote that says the most common problem with communication is the illusion that it has occurred, something like that. And it's similar with invitations. The problem with many invitations is the illusion that that they've occurred. Again, we think we're inviting, but has the invitation actually occurred? Because it's not actually an invitation if the other person doesn't receive it and understand what it is. So let's jump from there into our 4 keys to invitations that work. All right. So if an invitation doesn't work, it's because one of these 4 things is not right. It's not as good as it should be. So it really is that simple. It's not a total guessing game. We can help you analyze each of these things. And if you're not getting people to respond in the way you want, it's because of one of these 4 things. And so if you're willing to put in the work and analyze it a little bit, you can then figure out where you need to fix the problem so that you can start getting better results. So the first key is getting the right target audience. Seems kind of obvious, seems kind of simple, but this is super critical. And too often we don't put enough thought and intention into this. So one obvious example is, obviously you don't want to be inviting a group of single people to a marriage retreat. or a bunch of men to a women's event or something like that, right? So thinking about just being intentional with who is in front of me, who am I talking to, when's a good time to announce this particular event or invite somebody to this particular thing. Think about who the audience is, because there's a really powerful dynamic, and we've all experienced this, that like if you're in a large group and somebody up front says, hey, you're all invited, how invited do I personally feel to that? Do they really want me there? I'm not sure. It sounds like they just want anyone to come, right? But on the other hand, if that person walked up to me after the event and came up to me personally on the other extreme and said, hey, Matt, I would love for you to come to that event, totally different, right? And so we can't necessarily make a personal invitation to each person, although that's ideal. But the more you can cater your invitation to an intentional group, the more invited that person will feel. So keep that in mind. You might make an invitation to 1,000 people and get 20 people to respond. On the other hand, if you found the right 50 people, like you're inviting people to a marriage retreat, and you find the right people, the group of people who just went through marriage formation or who were just had an anniversary last month, and you invite that group of 50 people to the marriage retreat next month, you might get 30 responses instead of 10 or 20, announcing it to 1,000 general audience people, right? So there's this dynamic of invitation that when it's obvious that the group picked, that me being a part of that group was somewhat intentional, the more powerful the invitation is. So targeting the right audience is really key. It also affects delivery, which is the next key. So having an effective delivery is really, you have to get the audience right and understand the audience as part of that. So let's say like if our example was to invite the 82% to go to confession this Lent, right? So we know, again, our target audience, even though everyone's invited to go to confession this Lent, we're going to make an intentional effort to make sure that the 82% feel invited and hopefully respond to an invitation to attend confession this Lent. Okay, so that's our target audience. So now it's going to help inform how we talk about it, what channels we use, and how we go about the rest of these keys here that I'm going to talk about. So first of all, the right channel, right? So if you're putting it in the bulletin, if you're pushing it on your app, if you're doing these other things, the 82%, that's not the main place, if at all, they're going to see those kind of things. So places like email, text message, if used sparingly, are really great for the 82%. Announcements are huge on the Sundays that they're there in front of you, right? So keep in mind, what channel should we use for this invitation? Of course, other basic communication principles, which we've talked about lots of times on our other podcasts and resources, but keeping it short, intriguing, creative, engaging. You got to put the work in to do those things. And we could do a whole podcast on just that part of it. But you got to put the time in to get it down to something short, intriguing, engaging. Be creative if you can, be entertaining, talk about it in a way you've never talked about it before. We've talked about how like announcements is a huge opportunity to be able to reach the 82%, but not if they've already tuned out your announcement section at Mass, which most of them have. And so you have to find ways to wake them back up. You have to do it differently. You have to do something that gets their attention and then change up the pattern. You have to do things that engage them in a new way, or else they're just going to keep tuning it out and they don't get it. So do it differently. Get creative with your campaign. Have Father, do a keeping the light on for you campaign or whatever, something funny of him in the confessional. You can have fun with it and use other forms of media to do it, but you got to get their attention. You got to choose the right channel and make sure that the message gets received on the other side. That's part of our job as communicators and leaders. We can't just say it. It's our responsibility to make sure it's delivered. Okay. And so effective delivery is really key. So again, if the message isn't getting through, that may be one reason people aren't responding to invitations. And again, we're going to have our resource pack at the end of this, which has some good examples in there and some other things you can use. We'll send you for free after this that will help you with some of that. The next one's a big one. So we got the right audience. We know the message is getting to them where they're maybe reading it, paying attention. But now comes the convincing why. Too often when churches make invitations, we invite them to the what. We say, come to a marriage retreat next week or next month. Or we say, we'd love to get you on our email list. So please give us your email address, right? But we don't say why. And the why is what motivates people. So instead of saying, we have a marriage retreat next month, we should say, Would you like to have the best marriage you've ever had next month? Would you like to learn how to have a constructive argument with your spouse? Chuckle in the pews, right? So you need to have fun with it and have a convincing why, that now they're going to be motivated to respond to the invitation. So what's in it for them? Why would they come to that? Is what's missing in a lot of our invitations. So you have to analyze your why. Are you communicating your why? And then, is the why convincing? Because you might communicate the why really well, but if it's not convincing, then they're going to ignore it. And I think that happens quite a bit. Um, let's think about our example with confession. We might say, we'd like to invite you to confession this Lent. And the why is because you're required to go every year, right? That could be our why, which is it's a true why, but it's not very convincing to the 82% who already is not sensitive to that obligation, right? Or we might say, you should come to confession because of the amazing graces that are offered to you there. Again, 82% doesn't necessarily understand what that means. They're not in their brain looking for more graces. They don't think they need to go to confession, or they don't know what the value of it is. So if we're communicating the why in that way, it's not convincing. So one of the things to really think about here is a really important concept of um, thinking about the perceived needs of the audience. So our brains do this amazing thing because we're all bombarded by 10,000. They say it's like 10,000 marketing messages a day or something like that, something incredible. And you're like, there's no way I see that many, but that's what the studies show. But the point is that your brain has been trained to tune out almost all of them. And our brains are amazing that way. And the way our brains subconsciously do this is that it knows what its needs are. It knows what I need. And so if it doesn't fit that need, it doesn't even pop up on my consciousness. It just ignores it. I don't even see it. And so that's why it's so powerful to speak in terms of somebody's needs they already have. You've maybe had this happen before. I hear people tell me all the time because they're complaining about the perils of big tech and them listening to us on our devices all the time. And they're like, I was just having a conversation with my friend the other day, and we were talking about how I'm thinking about adopting a cat. And then I got online later and I saw this ad for cat food or cat toys or something. And I was like, I'm so mad that they were listening to that conversation and now they're serving me up ads. Now, there's an element of that that's true. And I totally agree that there are a lot of things we need to be careful with in terms of our privacy and big tech and how they're using it. I'm 1000% on board with that danger of being careful with that. But what the thing in this case is that most of the time that's not actually what's happening. Most of the time it's this funny trick that our mind plays, that when it has a need, it sees that thing. It sees the things that it needs. And so because in my subconscious, I know that I'm thinking about getting a cat, when I look around, now I notice things that have to do with cats. Okay. And so it's the same when we're making an invitation to the 82%. What's already on their mind? What are they already thinking about? What are the things they already think that they need? Because that's what their brain is looking for. Everything else they're going to completely ignore because and they don't even realize it. Their brain is just automatically doing it for them. And so when we talk about, again, the confession example, if we, instead of talking about, well, you need to go because it's required or because the graces are wonderful, you get to be close to Jesus, things that might not resonate in their head the same way, it might be saying things like, are you struggling with guilt about something? Are you in need of forgiving somebody else? Are you struggling to forgive somebody else? Are you angry about something? Are you having anxiety? Do you have relationship wounds? Do you feel burdened and stressed or overwhelmed? Right? These are all things that on a lot of people's minds and that real life struggles. And if you put it in that term and you say that this is why you should go to confession, is because there's healing for all of these things waiting for you there. Now it stands out in a totally different way. That's a more convincing why. And some people think, and Bishop Barron is a great champion of not dumbing down the faith, and I am fully on board with everything he says about that. But I think sometimes it gets misapplied to things like this. We think that because we're having to change our language to the way we're talking about something, we're actually dumbing it down, but we're not. We're actually smartening it up. It's actually pretty dumb to say things and try to communicate something where it's not delivered on the other side, where the other person doesn't understand what you're saying. That's not smart communication. That's dumb communication. So we have to not dumb it down. We need to smarten it up. We need to smarten up our communication so that the convincing why the thing that we're offering them, the thing we're inviting them to, resonates with them, so that it matches with some perceived need that they have, that it intersects with their lives in some meaningful way. That's smartening up our communication. And that's what we have to do when we're communicating and in making these invitations, is making sure that that convincing why is coming through and resonating. Okay, so convincing why. Now, you could get all this stuff right, and they still might not be able to respond to the invitation. They might want to, they've got the invitation, it's the right group, they feel wanted, they feel invited, they're convinced that they need to, but there might still be barriers involved. And so it's important to make a really successful invitation is to proactively remove barriers that might keep them from responding to your invitation. And so, again, think about the confession one. It might just be that they want to come, but the time of the week doesn't work for them. Maybe they're at work, right? So we need to think about, well, what would stop someone from coming? Maybe it's time of week. Maybe it's they're embarrassed that they haven't been in so long. So we need to assure when we're making the invitation that it doesn't matter how long you've been. In fact, the longer you've been away, like the more you need to come. And or I forgot how to say it. I don't know how to go to confession. Well, you don't have to know how to know, right? You don't have to. You just come and we help you through it. Here, follow this card. Whatever the thing is, right? You're thinking ahead about perceived barriers. What's going to happen in their brain and go, oh no, I can't go. It might be an excuse. It might be, oh, I can't even remember all the sins I've had, right? We need to perceive those barriers and those needs and get out in front of them and say, that doesn't matter. And we're going to try to fix it for you. We're going to offer it at this time. We're going to offer it at that time. We're going to, whatever the case may be, to try to remove those barriers. So you can apply this to any invitation, but these 4 keys, if you get them right, people will respond. Okay. And so it really is that simple. So we have to be willing to analyze how we're doing. So I want to do that real quick. So if you pull out your piece of paper, I'm going to do this on my whiteboard so you can see it. But it's a really cool way to visually see and analyze as a team at your parish how you're doing with making invitations in this case. So what I want you to do is go to space number 4. And what you're going to do is just draw a square. And you're going to make an X from corner to corner there. Okay. And then we're going to label each corner. Okay. So it doesn't matter which corner you don't have to do them the same as me, but they're the 4 keys. Okay. So we have audience. Okay. We have effective delivery. We have our convincing why. And we have barriers removed, hopefully. Okay. So make your box, label the corners, and write your X. Now what you do is the way you score yourself on how well are we doing with our invitations to the 82%. Okay, so you can take a specific example. Maybe it's a particular event or thing you're trying to invite them to. Maybe it's something you've done in the past. Maybe it's something you have plans for. You can apply this however you want, but do it now just as an exercise for something, so you can have done it. But then you can take this to your team and work through what may be keeping people from responding. Because if people are still drifting out of your parish, if they are not responding to your invitation, it's because of one of these 4 things. Because we all know that the Lord has something for them there at your parish. We all know that they need what He has, what our parish is made to do. So we know that part. That's the great benefit of our job of working at the church. But what we need to do is figure out why they're not responding. Okay, we know they need it, but so we can analyze in all these 4 corners. Here's a quick, fun way to do it. Okay, but you're gonna start in the middle. This is 0, and then 10 is the corner. Okay, so you're gonna put a dot at how you do on each of these axes. So if you say, well, we haven't really done a very good job targeting our audience. We've really just kind of invited everybody to everything. We haven't been intentional about really finding ways to invite the 82% and make them feel personally invited. Maybe our score is kind of low over here. So I'm going to put a dot right here. Okay. Now we're going to look at delivery. We'll say, well, delivery, we've actually done a pretty good job on. We've used the right channels, I think, to reach the 82%. We're getting their attention on Sundays. We've introduced some more creative ways of talking about things, and got some new voices, up there to get their attention. So we're doing pretty good. So I'm going to give us a pretty good score on delivery out here. Then you look at your why and you say, well, we have told them why, but it wasn't very convincing, I don't think, because we were probably speaking in a language that didn't resonate with them. And so our score might be, kind of average to low on the why. And then we're going to say, oh, barriers removed. I mean, we've worked really hard this year because we know that one of the barriers for this event was people didn't have childcare. So we offered childcare, and that really helped a lot. And so we think we've done a good job removing barriers so people can attend X event, right? Okay, so you have your score along each of these four axes. So what you do is you just draw a little line connecting them into a little four-sided polygon there. And this is your score. So this is like what you should expect in terms of a scale of like people responding to this invitation. Okay. So this just gives you a visual of where you're doing well and where you really need to work on. And so then you can talk as a team, okay, what do we need to do differently to target them more specifically and make them feel more personally invited, get the right target audience? What do we need to do to adjust our why so that it's more convincing to them? Do some research, talk to those actual people, analyze what you're doing and saying, and work to improve these things. And the more you improve these things, the more this box gets bigger and encompasses more area, meaning you've improved what you're doing and getting better results as a result. Okay. So anyway, again, simple exercise, but don't think that it's so simple it won't help you. Be able to do this as a team and talk about these issues, because if you do this and then address the issue, you will get better results and you'll start to solve a lot of these problems. So too often we just kind of guess. We say, okay, let's try this, and we try it, and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. We didn't really follow up and see. Let's try something else and let's repeat. And it's not intentional enough, and that's a lot of the reasons why we continue to struggle with some of the same things. So anyway, that is making invitations at work. You can apply that to any invitation you're making, but I really want to get specific now for the last part of the webinar here. And we want to challenge you to make one simple invitation to the 82% at your parish this Lent. Something you can do this Lent and apply some of this, invite the 82%. And this is an invitation that has power to change hearts and minds in immeasurable ways. And that is to invite them to pray together, an intentional extra effort to truly pray together with them, not do a prayer while they're in the room, but find ways for them to pray with you and draw them deeper into their prayer life. And so we put together a solution for you that is, it's virtually plug and play. It's all ready to go for you. And it's not just going to get you praying together with the 82% at your parish this Lent, but it's also going to teach them more about prayer and invite them to a deeper prayer life themselves. So Bobby, we're super excited about what we have to offer this year. For this particular challenge, inviting the 82% to pray with us.
Right. And we've got a lot of great content that Kathy's going to show for resources for Lent. But the challenge of getting your parishioners to pray with each other and to pray together for the parish, one of the biggest tragedies is that many Catholics leave because they either think a personal relationship with Jesus was not to be found, which is tragic, as well as feeling that their spiritual needs weren't being met. And so again, how do we really invite people instead of we've inviting everyone, but the person in the pew feels like, well, I'm not being invited. It's just to y'all, but it's not to me. That invitation to pray as something that is healing of wounds, getting us back in touch with the transcendent and the desires of our hearts. And so let's apply the four keys to a parish prayer. Now, some of your parishes may already have an existing parish prayer. We've created one for you to use as a template that Kathy will explain, but something that you could pray together. Let's look at the four keys. So who to invite. This is something that you do want your whole parish to have that unity to pray together. So you can invite them to go into this parish prayer in the Knights of Columbus, in the youth group, in a mom's ministry, but also everyone there. So the parish prayer could be done before Mass begins and have, again, a rotating voice of different people get up there and be willing to present that. Right after the petitions, the priest can lead that, the specific parish prayer. You can do it right at the end of Mass and explain that why. It's important to not just dump a new prayer on the community, but explain it, and even take 30 seconds before you do it every Sunday for the people that may not be coming every Sunday to say, and now we're gonna pray together the specific prayer for St. Catherine's so that we can be united and we can grow together as one parish family. Why are we doing it? As Matt mentioned, to target the emotions and the very human realities that we're experiencing, because if they're not bought into the faith, the language like of sanctifying grace may go over their heads. It may scare them. It may just kind of they may glaze over with the very technical inside baseball Catholic lingo. So to lean back again on like the common human experiences of stress and burden, and if you're feeling lonely, there's such a epidemic of loneliness post COVID here that has really been unearthed and made worse that we absolutely need to go and address. So the barriers being removed, let's look at that key. So why would the 82% choose not to participate? I don't have time. It doesn't seem effective. I know I should pray, but I never get around to it. The importance of, again, we pray together as a community and invite them to do this in a deeper way. And then how are we delivering it? As Matt said too, a variety of voices can help with this. Printing it out, putting it online, printing it on little cards maybe, so people can walk out with it, along with maybe the readings and a quick reflection of the Sunday Gospel. Um, and so before I throw it to Kathy to kind of explain what we've created for you along with the other content, I've been doing a deep dive into Blessed Carlo Acutis, who is the Italian first millennial on the way to sainthood. And he died of leukemia at age 15, but was a computer programmer. His website he created documenting Eucharistic miracles can still be viewed. Don't be afraid of the new media. Don't be afraid of technology and leaning into it for the sake of the gospel. To learn from, again, the secular world, best marketing and communication practices. This is stuff that the church fathers, St. Paul, Fulton Sheen, etc., they leaned into the tools we have available to this day so that as many people as we can manage hear the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes, thank you, Bobby. So again, you can this challenge to pray with the 82% at your parish this Lent. You can do this on your own in lots of different ways, and we're going to send you the free resources after this that can help with some of that. We've got a free sample prayer you can use if you like, but of course, there's lots of ways you can do this. But we also wanted to make it uniquely easy and engaging through Word on Fire Engaged. I think that's the real opportunity here. So we wanted Kathy to just show you how easy we make this in Word on Fire Engage for you that handles all this stuff for you, as well as a bunch of other additional things that really help you in engaging the 82% and being a part of that strategy.
Thanks, Matt. All right. Yeah. So Matt's right. We wanted to give you something that you could hit the ground running with. So we went ahead and created a parish prayer for you to put into action this Lent. Now you're free to use this prayer um, as is, right? Or there may be some ways that you can make it your own. So go ahead and put in your parish name, any particular themes or devotions that are specific to your community, or add that extra touch at the end of invoking your parish patron. And once you've got your prayer all set, be intentional about implementing it. Now, our number one recommendation for this is reciting it together as a parish each Sunday at Mass. Now you can put it out as printouts in your hymnals, display it on your screens if you've got screens, get prayer cards printed that are available in the pews and to take home. But a couple of tips that we wanted to share with you for implementing this. So first of all, of course, you're going to start off the Lenten season with an introduction of the prayer and why you're doing this as a community. But remember that you should probably give a short intro to it each and every week just to make sure those who missed it the first time kind of know what's going on, right? There's something super unsettling and really actually unwelcoming about standing there in the pews and then all of a sudden everyone around you launches into reciting something that you've never heard before. I would be like a bunch of us probably scrambling, trying to figure out what it is, how everyone knows it and I don't, where can I find it? But honestly, a lot of people probably wouldn't do that scrambling. They'd just sit and wait for it to be over. It can be uncomfortable. It doesn't really allow me an opportunity to participate. And it really just makes me feel on the outside all the opposite of what we're hoping for. So, just a quick, let's pray this prayer for our parish. Here's where you can find it. Please join us. Just that can go a long way. Now, the second tip is a community building idea. So, have a different member of the community lead the prayer at each Mass. And I'm not talking about like your lector just coming back up to the ambo one more time. Think of it more like when you'd have a different family come forward each week to light the Advent wreath. Now, I know that that might just seem like one more thing to coordinate, but really, how powerful and worth it would it be to have your community members praying along with one another, leading each other in prayer, and seeing their fellow regular parishioners of differing ages, backgrounds, and abilities bold enough to say yes to standing up and praying aloud in everyone, being bold enough themselves to pray aloud with them, right? For and with their community. Now, I also don't want you to think of this parish prayer as just one more thing that you could put on the docket for this Lent if you wanted to at your church this year, but instead as a sure footed, intentional decision to bring your parish together right to the fount of God's grace and mercy. Now, if we want everything that we're doing as a parish this Lent to be successful, to be transformative, let's, as a community, plant ourselves right where this grace that we're going to need for that is flowing from. So, Sundays, we pray our parish prayer together, whether that's this prayer or another version of this prayer or something all your own, right? And then from there, we want to take it out into the rest of our week as well. So, for example, if you've got a school, you can post it in every classroom and pray it together for the morning announcements. But really, what we want to do is pierce the barrier between what feels like the church's space and what feels like my space, my home, my daily life. So, what's a simple but concrete way that we can break the barrier there and we can make that happen? We would suggest choosing a day each week to also send out an email inviting everyone to pray your prayer. So go a step further even and choose a specific time, right? Every Wednesday at noon, wherever you are, pause and pray for our parish. It seems so little, right? But it can be so efficacious. So you can send that out as an email at that day and time. You could even invite people to opt in for a text reminder at that time each week. That's something that we can help with. So as a part of Word on Fire Engage subscriptions, we're including a set of pre-made emails that you can use on Flocknote to send out this parish prayer or a parish prayer of your own each week throughout Lent. And these are ready to customize and send. Let me back up a little bit and talk more about Word on Fire Engage for those of you who are not yet subscribers. So for parishes that use Flocknote to send emails and text messages to their parishioners, Word on Fire is an add-on to that subscription that combines the powerful communication capabilities of Flocknote with the powerful evangelization content from Word on Fire. And it serves as a faith formation strategy for the 82% that's unique to every season. You get a library of pre-made content, customizable emails and text messages, and series of emails and text messages that's constantly updated with new content and our recommendations of what to send when. Now let's take a look at one of our pre-made emails from that prayer series. Let me pull that up for you guys here. So each of the 7 emails in that particular series is going to contain an invitation to pray your parish prayer. But then also below that, if we scroll down, we'd see this dive deeper section in each email. And each of those is going to have a unique way to invite them to deeper prayer, reflection, or a next step of participation. So one up top, the reminder, pray that prayer, removing the barrier. Here it is, right, right in your inbox, right on your phone for you to pray right now. We're removing that barrier. And then 2, the resources below to help call them to more, to call them to deeper. Now, if you already have all of your parish contacts in Flocknote, you're already using Flocknote, you've seen how managing replies in one place and viewing analytics for what you've sent out and not having logins required for your members, all of those things change the game for your regular communications. And it's all of those same features that make new things possible with digital evangelization and impactful invitation that can change the game on those fronts as well. Now, if you don't have Flocknote yet, we can easily get you there so that you can start sending meaningful notes, dialoguing with your parishioners, analyzing your communication efforts, and really truly engaging your members. When I copy one of these notes from our library into my network to send it out, it opens up in our Flocknote email note composer. That way I can customize it however I'd like, put our own parish's spin on it, and then I can send it out, or I can schedule it to be sent out at a later date, which means at the start of Lent, before Lent even starts, you can set out all of these emails to go out over the next few weeks and then move on to other Lenten projects. Now, speaking of other Lenten projects, this prayer email series just skims the surface of the ready-made content available to you with Word on Fire Engage, and we went all out for you this Lent. the prayer email series, this is just one example. You've also got this Engage for Lent module where you're going to find an email for every Sunday in Lent, as well as some featured feast days. In our Lenten traditions module, we're breaking down the traditional practices of the Lenten season for the 82%. So prayer, fasting, the Stations of the Cross, almsgiving, giving them the why and the how to help inspire them to dive deeper this Lent. Now, monthly, we feature a family faith activity email for families who have children at home. But for Lent, we're expanding that out into an entire series that we're calling Holiness at Home. So this is going to feature small activities and traditions that parents can easily implement at home to help them make faith a central part of their family life and prepare the hearts of everyone in the household for Christ's death and resurrection. And then finally, we have a 10-day scripture-based prayer challenge that we're calling the Journey to the Cross Challenge. This series features 10 days of text messages that'll walk your members through the story of Christ's passion and death by inviting them to read and reflect each day in a way that's really accessible and built for people who it would work for people at any point along their faith journey. And we know, guys, right? This is so true. We know if we get the Word of God open in the homes of our parishioners, God will not disappoint there. Flocknote networks that subscribe to Engage have full access to all of these Lenten series, but also a lot more out there already and more to come. So you can pick and choose. You don't need to send it all. Just pick and choose what works best for your parish. Now, we'd love to show you how this works in action. We don't want to take the time right now, but we will include a link in the video of the follow-up email that we're sending where I'll take you step by step through the whole process. And also in that follow-up email, we'll include a document with the sample prayer that we created for you to use during Lent. Now, a quick note about that prayer. You may notice that the wording of it isn't super specific to Lent, and there's a reason for that. You're welcome to add a more Lenten focus to it, but as it is now, this is a prayer that could be used in your community this Lent and beyond. So it's one simple step starting now that can start a new culture of intentional prayer for and with your parish community this Lent and all year long. If you guys want more guidance, brainstorming ideas, I know we saw lots of awesome ideas flying in the chat, so thank you all for sharing those there. But if you want help brainstorming or you want to know more about those Lenten modules or what else Engage offers, or you need any practical help getting started, please reach out to our team. I'm going to pass it back over to Matt.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy. And so I know we're getting close to end on time here. Before we do a last couple things on your worksheet to round out the workshop, I just want to make a quick clarification also on Engage, on what it is not. So first of all, Word on Fire Engage is not a video content library. It is that too in a lot of ways, but it's not only that. And the reason we didn't want it to only be that is because as much as I love, that kind of resource as a 7% person, it doesn't ever, it's hard for it to break outside the 7%. And so one of the things we really wanted to crack the code on was how do we get this great content of the church into the hands and in front of people like the 82% who might benefit from it the most and who are not currently benefiting from it. And so we didn't want it to just be a library. We needed to be something that would also, it would be that too, but it's got content library, not just videos, but pre-made emails, pre-made text messages, videos, all in the copy, the written parts of it that are all put into these series or individual things that you can just grab within Flocknote and blast out to your groups, either everyone or particular ministries, particularly stuff that's made for the 82%. Additionally, we have the content delivery built into that. So like we mentioned, this is integrated with Flocknote. It's so easy to make a beautiful email or a text message and send it out, track replies, do it all in a safe environment way. Help people manage subscriptions, subscribe, unsubscribe, all of those things, all built in. So that's really important for the delivery of this. And then also we have these regular community calls. So just like at a webinar today where we see 1,000 other people that are doing the same things we're doing at our parishes that have the same sort of challenges, we take that into our community calls every month usually, where we're talking about these kind of topics. We're working on training, particularly how to use this comment well. And then every once in a while also we'll have Bishop Barron on there too, where you have a private Q&A session with Bishop Barron himself as part of the regular calls if you're a part of the engaged community. So all these wonderful things. Now you can try it for free for 30 days. And then after that, it's less than $2,000 a year for your whole staff all year long to have access to all of this material to send to as many parishioners as you have. And it includes all of this content I just mentioned. So all of this built in, made for feast days, made for the liturgical seasons, all of this stuff pre-made for you, ready to use, no matter how big your parish is, for all under $2,000. But again, you can try it totally for free. You can even go month to month if you want. And then, as Kathy mentioned, every parishioner as a part of that gets their own Word on Fire digital subscription included in that for free. So that alone is worth thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for the average parish. It's all included for free if you have this for your parish. You're providing a lot of amazing resources. It'd be a great asset, a tool in your toolbox for your faith formation strategy for the 82%. And again, if they have this, they have access to all of Bishop Barron's great media that he's created, the Catholicism series, all the Pivoter Players episodes, the series on the Creed, the sacraments, 7 Deadly Sins, the Mass, all of that stuff is all included in this, all access to all of your parishioners. So very incredible deal, all packaged together for a very reasonable price that more than pays for itself when you start to get a couple more people engaged as a result of this in your parish, able to support it financially and all of that. So it's important to think of it that way and realize what an amazing opportunity it is. But the main point is go pray with the 82% this Lent, make a good invitation, be intentional about your faith formation strategy. We want to wrap up the worksheet here now. If you go back to space number 1, hopefully you've been jotting down your key takeaways from today's workshop, ideas, things like that. It's important to remember that you might have 10 things there or 20 things there. A few of those things are going to make most of the impact. And so it's really helpful, rather than to get distracted by maybe some of the easy ones or the small ones or the fun ones, but take a moment now and look at your sheet and circle the 2 or 3 of them that are going to make 80% of the impact, that are going to make the biggest improvement, and start with those. Forget the rest for now and focus on those few that will make the biggest impact in your invitations, in your strategy for the 82%. So take a minute, circle those, and I encourage you to take this worksheet, take it to your next staff meeting, take it to your next leadership meeting, talk through these things, start applying some of this, even just 1 or 2 things that you learn from here. The main thing is to go and apply them. If they just stay in our head or on our worksheet, then they don't really do us any good. So we really encourage you to go and do something practical as a result of a workshop like this. All right, I know we're over time. We're still going to stick around and answer questions. I know some of you may have to jump off, but we'll stick around for a few more minutes and at least answer a few questions for you. I wanted to remind you, you can email us at engage@flocknote.com with any additional questions you have after this. We're going to send a follow-up email. So after this, everyone who attended here, registered, will get a follow-up email that has a replay link to share with your team. So you can forward that to your team for them to check out if they want to watch the workshop today. We have that Lenten invitation bonus resource pack that we're going to be sending you for free. We're going to have a how-to video in there to how to schedule and do the things that Kathy was talking about today, so you can see exactly how to do it. And of course, we'll help you through it as well. And we'll also send you that sample prayer that we use in there, so you can take that and modify it and customize it for your own parish. So again, we're going to email you all that stuff. But if you have any additional questions, engage@flocknote.com, or you can go to flocknote.com/engage and learn more about Engage. There's a little video on there and some other information about it. So again, we'll take a few questions here before we sign off. Kathy, do we have any common questions you've seen in the chat box over there today that would be good to answer for everybody?
Sure. First of all, thanks everyone so much for your input in there. If there was a question we didn't get to and we don't get to in this live portion, just reach out to us. But one thing that I saw a lot of was people saying like, okay, how do I explain this now to my staff? How do I explain this to my pastor? We did have a lot of pastors in here, which was cool to see. Other than just kind of taking this chart to them, what would you recommend?
Well, certainly, like I said, you'll have the replay link you can send to them, so that they can watch the whole workshop if they want. I think that, for you can rewatch it, get your notes together, and present something. I think the idea with presenting to your team, particularly your boss or your pastor, is to not overwhelm them with lots of information and distill this down. Again, what you're doing, you can apply this directly to this. You're inviting your pastor to participate in this. So how do you make a compelling invitation for him to participate in this effort, in this prayer effort for Lent, or in trying Flocknoting, Word on Fire Engage? How do you invite them? Well, the convincing why is a really important part. So you know your audience, you know how to go talk to him and sit down in front of him at his desk and actually have a conversation. But that convincing why and perceived barriers are things you can address for him. So think about the convincing why for your team. What's going to motivate them to do this? Why do they care about it? Do they care? Maybe they're particularly passionate about more people showing up to confession this Lent. Well, start with that and say, how can we invite people there better and apply some of this stuff because you care about the results of this? Why would they care about this? What's the convincing why? So it's a good way to think about all these things anytime you're presenting a new idea to somebody. And then again, perceive those barriers. Why are they going to say no? Why are they going to say we can't do this? Why are they going to say that this is too much work or too expensive or whatever the thing is? And then address those barriers beforehand so that way you've cleared the way for this to happen.
Awesome.
Another
Thanks.
question?
Yeah, it's something that I saw. This is sort of discussed a few different spots in the chat, but people talking about how, people these days, we're just less catechized, right? Like the people in the pews, they're less catechized. We feel like some of the people in the chat feeling like that's the biggest barrier. Like they just don't know their faith. But hey, we're presenting these, studies. They're not showing up. So this kind of goes a little deeper into what we've done in the past on our 82% webinars. But could you guys address real quickly how Engage specifically is a different approach than a traditional catechizing of people that they're really not, showing up for?
Yeah, well, I'll take a hack at it, and you guys can add on to it because you guys have lots of insights into this too. But I mean, first of all, the format is important. So the format and delivery is key. So inviting them to a Bible study that's a night a week for a semester, like that's not 82% normally. Like they're not gonna respond to that. But if you can be creative enough and value added enough in your, say, email each week, you can train them to look for that each week. And maybe instead of it taking them an hour to watch a whole episode of something or a movie or something, or read a book or something that's big step, they can watch a short 3-minute video about this. And so some of it's format, again, that's not dumbing it down, it's smartening it up. And it's like getting it in a place where like they will be motivated right now to do that step. And then you can feed on that. So some of it's format. And then some of it, of course, is what I talked about earlier, that convincing why, speaking in a language that resonates with their perceived needs right now. So the reason when someone says, oh, I'm too busy for this, because we hear that a lot too, well, they're just too busy to do anything at the parish. People have the same amount of time as they've always had. It's just they're putting it towards other more important things. For them, it's more important, like Bobby said earlier. So the key is, how do you elevate the importance of what the parish has to offer? We know that it actually is more important in most cases, what we're offering them, and than a lot of these other sort of things they might do, and especially if it's missing from their lives, but they don't perceive it that way. So that's again, do that chart. It works. It's not convincing. Like what you're saying to them is not convincing to them that they need it. So you have to work on whatever that particular thing is and get your language, find the points of intersection and find ways to inspire them, starting with one of their own immediate perceived needs and working from there in order to get them where to go. What would you guys add to that?
I would add that just consider even the subject line of an email. How, Matt, you said we're bombarded by marketing and messaging all day long, and very quickly that message, the subject line shows me important or not important. And so even breaking through, there are certain, stuff I just automatically delete. And then some subject lines which get me to laugh because they're going for humor, or they're just cutting through, again, not overwhelming the unevangelized with theological heavy grad level language, but do you hunger for justice? Oh, you know, yeah, of course I do. And so I'm more likely to click on that. And then you can have, again, a paragraph, or again, this is what's great with Flocknote, the system, is that you can edit it. If you don't like the pre-made text that we've created for you to make it easy, you can reword it. You can add in a different video. You can add a message from the pastor or whatever. So I would just say too, like, what's going to get your attention? Like, consider yourself. What kind of emails do you spam out or do you automatically delete? How can you make just, again, the cover of the book as attractive and as welcoming as possible so that the unevangelized will open it. So even just asking that, what emails do I delete and which emails do I actually click on and open? And what is it about that messaging that got me to open it?
Yeah. And so some of that, you need a tool to be able to track those kind of things. So that's something built into Flocknote. It tracks your open rates. You can see responses and replies and really get a gauge of like what worked and maybe what didn't. So you can learn. So that feedback's important. But I think we've done a good job of continuing to add content in Word on Fire Engage that looks for those points of intersection with the 82%. That's going to grab them. That's going to be relevant to them. And then getting great content in there of, again, the format, few minutes, short videos, but things that can kind of build on that. Like even the one Kathy showed the example of in her presentation about prayer. So you have your weekly prayer you're going to do during Lent with your parishioners, and you send that out in the middle of the week. Sometimes you can all pray it together. But right underneath that is to go deeper, and it's this this really engaging video from this inspiring nun that's like talking about the power of prayer, in this short little video. And so like that's perfect because like that's intriguing to them. It's something they don't normally see in your emails from the parish. They click on it, they get a few minutes, and now you've trained them. Okay, maybe the email next week will also have something interesting underneath it. And you've trained them to more likely open the next one now. And so those kind of things are built into the way we're designing these things.
Thanks so much, guys. Just going to touch real quick on some more practical questions that we've had coming in now. So the follow-up email that you're going to receive will just be later this afternoon. But the emails that we talked about, those modules, they're available now in the library if you have an current Engage subscription or you start a trial. So if you go to your library at Flocknote, you don't see those there, it's because you still need to sign up for your trial. So go to flocknote.com/engage, and then you should see that content pop up there. Now, in the follow-up email is also going to be that bonus resource pack that's going to have images that you can use when you're inviting people. And it's also going to have a PDF that has sample text that you can even borrow from, right, to use. So look for that in the email. We did have a question that I love, that we get this question a lot of, like, so do I send this content to everyone all the time or to specific groups? Now, the answer is kind of nuanced. It really depends on what you're sending, right? So kind of taking those four things, especially thinking about target, right? And it's just going to depend. We have some guidance on that. That's part of what we do with Engage, is we provide some guidance to you all of what to send when and to who, and how our what our best practices are for using it. So we encourage you, once you sign up, to join us also for our community calls where we discuss those things. But in particular, I saw one question I thought you guys might be able to address that kind of fits in with that, is how do we know when we're inviting people too much? We have all this stuff, and how do we know when, if this great stuff is still just too much to invite people to?
Yeah, I think if you're watching the results, you're going to get an idea because it won't be working. It's not effective delivery. It impacts all my future deliveries if I've sent them an email too often, if I've text messaged them too much, if I've bombarded them with too much information, then they start to tune it out. You can only make so many things stand out amongst all that noise that they're already getting. And so you have to be more limited. And the thing is, the church doesn't need to do more in a lot of these ways. It needs to do it slightly differently. So the church naturally has these beautiful things, whether it's prayer, come to the sacraments, participate in Stations of the Cross. Like there's already these things built in to what the church does. It's just we're not making the connection. So every year we're already inviting people to those things. We just need to improve our invitation, not just do more things. And so especially when it comes to this content and Engage, it's tempting because there's so much good stuff in there to say, oh, I'm going to send all this out to everybody. So there's some ways you can control that, where if there really are a few things you want to offer, you can allow them to opt in. And so that's things we have built into Flocknote as well. You can send an email to everyone and say, hey, here's 3 things you can opt into. It's a daily text message. It's 10 days of learning about the journey to the cross. It's the Stations of the Cross, or whatever. Like we have these things built in, and it's a daily email or a weekly email, and you can create separate groups within your Flocknote network and allow people to single click subscribe to those. So you can allow people to opt in, so that way they can choose to do it but not force it on everybody. When it comes to everybody, like you need to pick one thing this Lent. You need to pick one thing. We really want to, like, you can improve all your invitations, all your normal sort of invitations of normal things you have going on at the parish, but pick one thing to really focus on and do that really well. I think we need to do more things with more intention, not just more things. so we need to do less things with more intention. But all the things we do, we need to do intentionally, but we need to pick fewer things and do them with intention. That's what I should say. And then we need to not just do more things, because that just makes the problem worse. So those are very good questions. And like Kathy said, those are things we discuss on those community calls, because everyone's struggling with those same questions. Like, we got all this great content, we want to get all this stuff in front of everybody, we got to learn how to do it effectively. So there's a lot to that, but hopefully that helps. All right, so I think that covers it. We'll let you stick. Appreciate most of you guys stuck around late, so it's always wonderful. We love talking about this stuff. We hope that was helpful for you. Again, you can try all of this free, fully functional, totally free for 30 days. So definitely go check it out. Let us know your feedback, your questions. We're continuing to add more content and make it better and better. And go to flocknote.com/engage to learn more there. But finally, thank you for all of your important, inspiring work. You guys inspire us. It's awesome seeing so many engaged parish leaders here they're engaged in their work, that care enough to come learn more and try to do their jobs better. And we're privileged to be able to support you in that in any way that we can. So please let us know how else we can help. And we hope that these 4 keys to invitations at work will be something that'll help you going forward, no matter what you're doing. And that you go and invite the 82% to pray with you this Lent. But till next time, you guys keep going, and God bless you.
Yeah, thank you, Matt and Kathy, and the whole Flocknote and We're on Fire team behind the scenes. And again, for all the parish leaders who have boots on the ground, for all your work, seen and unseen, for building up the body of Christ. Thank you for what you do, and we pray you have a blessed Lent and Easter season.
Thanks, everybody.